My name is Mara Bellamy. I'm 42 years old. And 9 years ago, my father walked out of my hospital room while I was in labor because he didn't want to miss his own black tie gala. I was 33 then, swollen, scared, hooked to a monitor in room 411 at St. Agnes Women's Pavilion, and my father was standing beside my bed in a tuxedo with a silver pen clipped inside his jacket. When I asked him not to leave, he looked at the contraction monitor instead of my face and said, "This is why I can't trust you with anything important." What was at stake that night was my baby, my body, my dignity, and a family inheritance I did not yet understand well enough to protect out loud. I did not scream. I did not beg. I watched him leave with my mother following 3 steps behind him, her evening bag tucked under her arm like she was late for dinner, not leaving her daughter alone in a medical crisis. There was a nurse in blue sneakers who saw more than my family knew. And there was one document my father believed I had signed during the worst night of my life. 9 years later, in the marble conference room of his foundation, he pushed that same silver pen toward me while my daughter stood beside me holding a purple backpack. He told me to smile and not embarrass him again. What happened after that made 3 donors close their folders, made my brother stop talking, and made my father's hand shake so badly the pen rolled off the table. But to understand why he needed my signature, you have to know why he thought my silence belonged to him. Welcome back to By Then I Knew, where the quiet parts of family stories finally get said plainly. If you have ever been the dependable one, the easy one, the one everybody praised because you made yourself convenient, this story is for you. Listen closely, because sometimes the thing they pressure you to sign is less important than the fact that you were tired enough to almost believe them. My father's name is Warren Bellamy, and if you lived anywhere near Northern Virginia, there was a good chance you had seen his smile before you ever saw mine. His picture was on Gala programs, hospital campaign brochures, donor walls, foundation newsletters, and once, for one embarrassing month, on the side of a city bus. The Bellamy Promise Foundation was his life's work, or at least, that was how he described it when there was a microphone nearby. He started every speech with the same line. My mother taught me that every child deserves someone who shows up. People loved that line. They stood up for it. They quoted it. They printed it in glossy annual reports above pictures of children holding backpacks and books and new winter coats. The strange thing was, the line was almost true. My grandmother, Evelyn Bellamy, did believe in showing up. She had grown up poor in a house where people stretched soup with water and patched coats at the elbows. When she married into money, she did not become hard the way some people do. She became exact. She knew who had eaten and who had not. She knew which neighbor needed a ride to dialysis. She knew which child at church had shoes too small because she could see how they walked. My father inherited her money, her cheekbones, and her audience. He did not inherit her attention. When I was little, I thought the foundation was another sibling. It had birthdays, emergencies, photographs, and needs that came before mine. If I had a school concert, there was a donor dinner. If I had a fur, there was a board retreat. If I wanted my father to look at a drawing, he would say, "Not now, Mara. Daddy's doing something important." After a while, you learn not to bring the drawing. My younger brother, Graham, learned a different lesson. He learned that if he repeated my father's words back to him, he got invited into the room. By 12, he was wearing navy blazers and shaking hands with men who smelled like aftershave and expensive wine. By 16, he could tell you the names of the top 15 donors and which ones preferred handwritten thank you notes. By 25, he was calling himself foundation raised, like that was a credential. I was raised in the kitchen corners of those events. I arranged place cards. I folded napkins. I made sure the silent auction bid sheets had pens attached to ribbons. I stood beside my mother while she corrected the flowers and whispered, "Mara, don't hover. Smile naturally." My mother, Celeste, was beautiful in a way that made strangers forgive her before she said anything. She had silver blonde hair that never looked windblown, even in actual wind, and she wore perfume that stayed in hallways after she left. She was not cruel in the obvious way my father could be. She did not slam doors or raise her voice. She softened everything until the edge disappeared and the wound looked like your fault for bleeding. When my father missed my 8th grade awards night because a senator wanted a private tour of the foundation's scholarship wing, my mother sat on my bed and rubbed lotion into her hands. "Your father carries a lot," she said. I remember looking at the small gold clock on her dresser. It was shaped like a carriage and had never kept the right time. "I carried my speech," I told her. She smiled sadly, like I had said something childish. "You're strong, sweetheart. Graham needs more guidance. You've always understood." I did understand. That was the problem. Children who understand too much stop asking for what they need. My grandmother was the only person in that house who did not praise me for disappearing. She lived in a brick cottage behind our main property after my grandfather died, close enough that I could run there through the side garden. Her kitchen smelled like coffee, paper, and rose soap. She kept a small desk by the window, where she opened mail with a brass letter opener shaped like a feather. When I was 17, she found me at that desk, crying quietly over a college financial aid form because my father had told me I was being dramatic about application deadlines. Grandma Evelyn slid a blue folder toward me. "You know what your father does when he does not want to answer a question?" she asked. I wiped my face with my sleeve. "He says he has a call. He makes the room move faster than the truth," she said. Then she tapped the folder. "So you slow down, you read." Inside the folder were copies of things I did not care about at 17, bylaws, articles, minutes, amendments, lists of names. As he saw the foundation seal on the first page and almost pushed it back. "Grandma, I don't want foundation stuff." "I know," she said. "That's why I trust you with it." That sentence stayed with me in a way I did not understand then. Before I left for college, she gave me the folder for real. It had a blue cloth cover and one bent corner where someone had dropped it. She wrote my name on the inside flap in black ink. "Mara Bellamy, keep safe. Read before you agree." At 18, I packed it with winter sweaters, a desk lamp, and the cheap towels my mother said looked perfectly fine for dorm life. I put it on a high shelf and forgot about it most of the time. When Grandma Evelyn died 2 years later, I brought the folder home for the funeral because it felt wrong to leave it behind. My father gave the eulogy. He stood under white lilies and told a room full of donors that his mother's greatest gift had been teaching him how to show up. I sat in the second row beside my mother and Graham, wearing black flats that pinched my heels, and I stared at his polished shoes. Behind him was a large photo of Grandma Evelyn in her garden, smiling like she knew the difference between a public sentence and a private truth. After the funeral, my father became louder about legacy. He added Evelyn's name to programs. He renamed a scholarship after her. He started ending letters with "For Evelyn's promise." He also became impatient with any document that slowed him down. That was the first time I saw how often people signed things because my father had made refusal feel impolite. I did not go into nonprofit work because of him. I went into it because numbers calmed me and rules made sense when people did not. After college, I got a job with the state's grant oversight office. My title was boring enough to make my brother smirk: compliance analyst. I reviewed funding reports, governance documents, restricted use accounts, audit findings, board minutes, and corrective action plans. At my first family dinner after I got promoted, Graham raised his glass and said, "Congratulations to Mara, queen of clipboards." My father laughed. I smiled because that was what I had been trained to do. Somebody has to read the fine print. Graham leaned back in his chair. "You don't run nonprofits, Mara. You audit them." My father said, "Let her have her little expertise. It suits her." My mother gave me a warning glance, the kind that meant, "Don't make this unpleasant." So I didn't. I learned to let people underestimate work they were too careless to do themselves. I learned to make notes. I learned to keep copies. I learned that a missing signature could stop a $1 million transaction faster than an angry speech ever could. Still, when I got pregnant at 33, some part of me wanted my family. I wish I could tell you I had already outgrown that. I had not. I was not married. Iris's father, Daniel, had been kind for the first year and slippery for the last 6 months. By the time I was 7 months pregnant, he had taken a job in Denver, sent one long text about not being built for family pressure, and become the kind of person who mailed checks late and called that effort. My father hated that, not because he was worried about me, because the optics were inconvenient. At Sunday lunch, he sat at the head of the table while my mother served cold salmon and cucumber salad. Graham was there with his fiancée, Alina, who had learned quickly to laugh at the right volume. My father said, "We'll need a plan for how to discuss this." I was 8 months pregnant, sweating through a blue maternity dress, trying to cut salmon with a dull knife. "Discuss what? The situation," he said. "My daughter is not a situation." The table went quiet. My mother's hand paused over the water pitcher. Graham gave a low whistle. "Here we go." My father set down his fork. "Mara, nobody is attacking you. But you have to understand, people ask questions. The foundation works with family services. We promote stability." I looked at him. "Are you saying my pregnancy makes the foundation look unstable?" "I'm saying your choices reflect on more than you." That was one of his favorite tricks. He made himself the injured party in every room. My mother reached for my hand under the table, and for 1 second, I thought she might defend me. Her fingers touched mine. Then she patted my knuckles like I was a nervous dog and said, "Your father is only asking you to be mindful." That was her almost kindness. A hand reaching halfway, then retreating into the familiar. The gala was scheduled for October 17th. Everyone in our family knew that date, because my father had been talking about it for a year. It was the foundation's 35th anniversary gala, the first one with a governor attending, the first one in the renovated museum atrium, the first one Graham had chaired almost entirely on his own. My due date was October 24th. My father joked more than once that the baby had better be punctual. When I started having contractions on October 17th at 3:40 in the afternoon, I was standing in my kitchen trying to screw a new bulb into the porch light. The old one had burned out 2 nights earlier, and I hated coming home to a dark door. I remember that because the bulb was still in my hand when the pain wrapped around my back. I called my mother first. She answered on speaker. I could hear hairspray, a drawer opening, the quick click of her heels. "Mom," I said, breathing through it. "I think I'm in labor." There was a pause. "Oh, Mara," she said, and not with joy. Then my father's voice came from farther away. "What is it?" "She thinks she's in labor." He said something I couldn't hear. My mother came back. "How far apart?" "I don't know yet. 7 minutes, maybe 6. Did your doctor say to go in?" "I'm calling now." Another contraction started, and I held the edge of the counter. The porch light bulb rolled into the sink. My mother lowered her voice. "Tonight is complicated." I stared at the kitchen tile. Tonight is complicated. Not dangerous. Not exciting. Not the night her first grandchild might be born. Complicated. I drove myself to St. Agnes because the contractions were still far enough apart, and because I had been raised not to be dramatic. I had a hospital bag in the back seat, a towel under me, and my phone balanced in the cup holder with my doctor's office on speaker. I remember stopping at a red light on Arlington Pike and looking at a poster for my father's gala on a bus shelter. Warren Bellamy smiling in black tie. For Evelyn's promise. At the hospital, a volunteer brought me a wheelchair even though I said I could walk. She was an older woman with purple glasses and a badge that said Nancy. She looked at my face and said, "Honey, pride can wait in the lobby." I almost cried from that one sentence. In triage, they put a band around my wrist and asked who my support person was. I said my mother, maybe my father. The nurse wrote Celeste Bellamy in the chart and left the second line blank. My parents arrived at 6:10. I know the time because I looked at the clock when my father walked in wearing his tuxedo. Black jacket, white shirt, cuff links, polished shoes. My mother wore a dark green gown under her coat and pearl earrings that brushed her jaw when she moved. "You came," I said. My father kissed the forehead without bending enough. Of course. For 20 minutes, I let myself believe that meant something. Then his phone buzzed. Then it buzzed again. Then he stepped toward the window and spoke quietly to Graham about table 12. At 6:52, a nurse came in. She was short, with warm brown skin, black hair pinned at the back of her neck, and bright blue sneakers. Her name badge said Tessa Lynn, RN. She checked the monitor, then looked at me instead of the machines. "How are we doing?" "We?" I asked. She smiled. "You and baby, you're a team for tonight." My father laughed lightly. "A very dramatic team." Tessa did not laugh with him. She adjusted the strap around my belly. "Pain level 7, I said. "Contractions are close. Doctor's on the way." My mother stood by the bed, twisting her wedding ring. I could tell she was counting minutes in her head, measuring the hospital against the Gala program. Cocktail hour at 7, dinner at 8, my father's speech at 9. At 7:06, the baby's heart rate dipped. I did not understand the sound at first. The steady galloping changed. Tessa looked at the monitor, then hit a button. Another nurse came in, then another. "Turn on your side for me," Tessa said. My father stepped back. "What's happening? Just giving baby a better position," Tessa said, calm but quick. My mother reached for my hand. Her fingers were cold. I gripped them so hard she winced. For one moment, she stayed. Then my father's phone rang again. He looked at the screen. I saw Graham's name. "Don't answer," I said. He frowned like I had interrupted him in a meeting. "Dad, please," he silenced it. But the damage was already in his face. He was not in the room anymore. He was under the museum lights, at the governor's table, inside the applause. A resident came in and explained something about decelerations and possible interventions. I heard every third word. Tessa kept one hand on my shoulder. My mother's hand slipped out of mine. At 7:19, my father leaned toward me. "Mara, listen," he said. "They have this handled." I stared at him. "Don't leave. This is the biggest night in the Foundation's history. I'm scared." His expression tightened. He hated need when it had no audience benefit. "This is why I can't trust you with anything important," he said. The room did not stop. Machines kept beeping, nurses kept moving. My mother made a small sound, almost my name, almost a protest. Then my father reached inside his tuxedo jacket. For one strange second, I thought he was taking out a handkerchief. Instead, he took out a folded document and the silver pen. It was heavy-looking, engraved, the kind of pen donors gave each other when buildings opened. "I need you to sign a simple authorization before things get hectic," he said. Tessa stepped between him and my bed so smoothly, I did not understand what she was doing until she had already done it. "No paperwork right now," she said. My father gave her the smile people described in newspaper profiles as warm. "It's family business. She is my patient," Tessa said. "Not right now." His jaw moved once. My mother whispered Warren. I looked at her. Her eyes were wet. She knew. Maybe not everything, but enough. Enough to say stay. Enough to put her purse down. Enough to choose the daughter on the bed over the husband in the tuxedo. Then Graham called again. My father folded the document and slid it back into his jacket. "We'll handle this later." He looked at me one last time, not with worry, but with irritation. "You need to calm down," he said. Then he left. My mother stood frozen for 3 seconds. I counted them because my whole body was waiting for her to move toward me. 1, 2, 3. She bent down and kissed the air near my cheek. "I'll come back as soon as I can." I could not even say her name before she followed him. The door closed softly. That softness hurt more than a slam would have. Tessa adjusted my pillow. She did not say, "I'm sorry," right away. She did not fill the room with pity. She looked at the monitor, checked the IV, said, "Mara, look at me. We're going to get through this 1 minute at a time." I did what she told me, because she was the only person in the room who sounded like she meant. Iris was born at 8:46 that night after a delivery that did not go the way anyone plans. There was oxygen, there were gloved hands. There was a moment when too many people came in at once, and I stopped hearing words as language. I heard tone, urgency, control. Tessa stayed near my left shoulder and kept saying, "She's almost here. You're doing it. Stay with me." When Iris cried, it was thin and furious. Someone said, "Good lungs." I laughed and sobbed at the same time. They placed her against my chest, red and slippery and alive. She opened one eye like she was suspicious of the whole world. Her tiny hand curled against my skin. I whispered, "Hi, baby." I stayed. The first family photo taken of Iris was not with my parents. It was taken by Tessa on my phone because I asked her, embarrassed, if she would mind. My hair was stuck to my forehead. My hospital gown had slipped off one shoulder. My eyes were swollen. Iris looked like a wrinkled old man with a pink hat. It is still my favorite picture. My father texted at 9:12, "How are things?" Not, "Is she here?" Not, "Are you safe?" Not, "I'm coming back." "How are things?" I did not answer. At 11:30, my mother sent a picture from the gala. My father stood at a podium under blue lights. Behind him, on a screen taller than my hospital room wall, were the words, "For Evelyn's promise." The message underneath said, "Your father is doing beautifully. Baby?" That was how my daughter was announced to my family, as a question after a compliment. By morning, the official story had already begun forming without me. My mother came to the hospital at 10:15 wearing cream slacks and large sunglasses. My father was not with her. She brought flowers from the Gala centerpieces, white roses wrapped in damp paper towels. They would have gone to waste, she said. I was sitting up bed trying to feed Iris, who was angry at both of us for not knowing what we were doing. My body felt split open and far away. My mother set the flowers on the windowsill and looked around the room like it had disappointed her. "Where's Dad? He had donor breakfasts. Everyone asked about you." I looked down at Iris. "What did you say? That you had a difficult night? But you and the baby were fine. A difficult night." I waited. My mother adjusted one rose. "Mara, your father was very worried." "No, he wasn't." She turned. "That's not fair. I laughed once and it came out ugly because I was exhausted. He left. He had obligations. I was in labor. And he came to the hospital first," she said, like I had forgotten to be grateful for the appetizer version of fatherhood. Iris started crying. I tried to shift her, and pain flashed through me so sharply I gasped. My mother moved forward, then stopped. Her hands fluttered near her waist. "Do you want me to get a nurse?" I looked at her hands, those beautiful, useless hands. "No," I said. "I've got it." Tessa came in anyway a minute later because she heard Iris. She helped me latch her, adjusted the pillow, and brought ice water without making me ask. My mother watched with her purse on her lap. Before she left, Tessa checked my chart and said, casually, "For the record, I noted family departed at 7:21. My mother's face changed. It was quick. If I had not been raised watching her perform calm, I would have missed it. "Is that necessary?" my mother asked. Tessa looked at her. "Charting support changes is routine." My mother smiled. "Of course." After Tessa left, my mother lowered her voice. "You don't need to make this into something." I stared at her. "I'm not the one who left." "No, but you can choose not to punish everyone." That sentence was the first brick in the wall between us. I did not cut them off then. I wish I had a cleaner story, but I don't. For the first year of Iris's life, I let my parents drift in and out when it suited them. My father came by twice, both times with photographers from the Foundation's communications team, because they were doing a piece on 3 generations of promise. I refused the photos. He called me bitter. My mother visited more often, but always like she was doing charity work in a neighborhood she did not know. She brought smocked dresses too expensive to wash and made comments about my couch, my dishes, my tired face. Graham came once and held Iris like she was a football. "Wild night, huh?" he said. I looked at him. "You mean her birth?" "I mean Dad almost missing the governor," but he crushed the speech. I took Iris back from him. A week after I came home, I found my porch light fixed. I stood in the doorway at 6 in the morning, holding Iris against my chest, and blinked up at the yellow glow. On the mat was a grocery bag with diapers, a carton of eggs, and a plastic container labeled in blue tape. Rice, beans, chicken, not spicy. My neighbor, Marisol Vega, opened her door across the hall before I could knock. She was in scrubs, her hair wet, keys in her hand. "You were coming home to a dark porch," she said. That bothered me. I started crying so suddenly I scared myself. Marisol did not hug me. That would have been too much. She picked up the grocery bag, carried it into my kitchen, and put the eggs in the fridge. "Eat first," she said. "Talk later or don't." That was how my real help arrived. Not with roses from a gala. With a working porch, light, and food that could be reheated at 2 in the morning. 3 months after Iris was born, a thick envelope came from my mother, cream stationery, my name written in her careful script. Inside was a stack of Foundation documents with sticky tabs near signature lines. The note on top said, "Sweetheart, just some cleanup items your father needs for the files. Nothing urgent, but sooner is better. Sign where marked and send back in the enclosed envelope. Love, Mom." I was standing at the kitchen counter while Iris slept in a bouncy seat, making the tiny snuffling noises babies make when they are deciding whether to ruin your next 10 minutes. I flipped through the packet. Resignation acknowledgement, conflict waiver, release of claim, consent to removal from legacy communications, authorization to update membership records. Most of it meant nothing to me then, not fully. I was sleep-deprived and leaking through my shirt and trying to remember whether I had paid the electric bill. But one phrase made me stop: voluntary relinquishment. I read the sentence 3 times. I had learned enough at work by then to mistrust any document that called itself voluntary, while arriving with sticky tabs from your mother. I put the packet back in the envelope and slid it into a drawer under takeout menus and extra batteries. My mother called the next day. "Did you get the envelope?" "Yes." "Good. Your father wants everything tidy before the annual report." "I haven't had time. It's just signatures, Mara." "What is it for?" "Pa's housekeeping. I'll read it first." Her voice cooled. "Of course. You always do need to make things formal." I looked at Iris, asleep with one fist against her cheek. "I'll read it," I said. I did. Not that day. Not that week. But slowly, between feedings and work, and nights when Iris cried so long I sat on the bathroom floor with the shower running for steam, I read enough to know I should not sign. I did not yet know what power I was refusing to give away. I only knew the packet felt like a door someone wanted me to close from the inside. My father called once about it. "Mara, your mother tells me you're dragging your feet." "I'm reviewing," he exhaled. "This is exactly what I mean. You turn simple things into problems." "What am I resigning from?" "Nothing meaningful." "Then why do you need it?" "Because records matter." That almost made me laugh. Records mattered when he needed mine, not when the record showed he left. "I'm not, Sine," I said. His voice became quiet. "Be careful not to confuse paperwork with importance." I looked at the blue folder on the shelf across the room. Grandma Evelyn's folder. I had moved it into the living room after Iris was born, because something about having it nearby made me feel less alone. "I won't," I said. Years passed the way they do when you are raising a child by yourself, slowly in the day, fast in memory. Iris grew into a girl with serious eyebrows and a laugh that came out in bursts, like she was surprised by joy every time it arrived. She loved purple from the moment she could choose. Purple socks, purple hair clips, purple toothbrush. When she started kindergarten, Marisol bought her a purple backpack with silver stars on the front pocket. "For carrying important documents," Marisol said solemnly. Iris filled it with crayons, rocks, acorns, and once an entire bag of baby carrots she forgot about until the smell became a household event. My family saw her on holidays, sometimes. My father liked her best in photographs. He called her Little Legacy, until I told him to stop. He gave her gifts that looked good in boxes and did not fit her actual life: porcelain dolls, monogrammed coats, a child's etiquette book with gold-edged pages. Marisol gave her rain boots. When Iris was 6, she asked me why Grandpa Warren never came to her school things. "He's busy," I said, then hated myself immediately. She looked up from coloring. "Busy every time?" Children find the weak spot in a lie without trying. "Yes," I said, "a lot of times." She considered this, then went back to coloring a purple house with a yellow porch light. Around that same time, my work changed. I moved into a unit that reviewed larger nonprofit grants. That meant more bylaws, more board minutes, more restricted funds, more organizations that had started with good intentions and drifted into whatever powerful people could get away with calling governance. One afternoon, I was reviewing a small arts nonprofit that wanted to pledge a restricted building fund as collateral. Their executive director had attached a board resolution, but not the required member consent. I wrote a finding and sent it back. My supervisor, Nadine, stopped by my desk. "Good catch," she said. "A lot of people miss membership rights." I looked at the phrase on my screen, membership rights. Something moved in the back of my mind. That night, after Iris was asleep, I took Grandma Evelyn's blue folder down from the shelf. The cloth cover had faded at the spine. The bent corner had softened. I sat at my kitchen table with a mug of cold tea and opened it. The first pages were what I remembered: articles, bylaws, board lists. Then, behind a divider labeled Legacy Members, I found a certificate with my name typed in the center: Mara Elise Bellamy. My grandmother's signature was at the bottom. I read it once, then again. Then I took out my laptop and began searching terms I had only half understood before. The house was quiet, except for the refrigerator hum and Iris turning over in her sleep down the hall. I did not call my father. I did not call my mother. I made copies. That became my habit. When something bothered me, I did not confront first. I copied first. I requested public filings. I pulled old annual reports. I searched the foundation's state records. I found amendments that made sense and amendments that did not. I found meetings minutes that referenced discussions I had never known about. I found one set of minutes dated 6 weeks after Iris was born. The paragraph was short. The board discussed the status of Mara Bellamy following the documented instability surrounding her childbirth and her expressed desire not to participate in foundation affairs. Warren Bellamy advised that family cleanup documents were underway. The board agreed to proceed with the understanding that Ms. Bellamy would not be involved in future governance matters. I read the words documented instability until they stopped looking like English. My daughter was asleep in the next room. There was a purple backpack by the door with a field trip permission slip sticking out of it. My kitchen table had crumbs on it. I was wearing pajama pants with a hole near the knee, and there it was, in formal minutes. My fear had been turned into a record. My abandonment had been turned into my defect. For a few minutes, I felt the old pull to explain, to call my mother and ask how they could let that sentence exist, to call Warren and demand he remove it, to make someone admit that what happened in room 411 had not been weakness. Instead, I opened a new folder on my laptop and named it Evelyn. Then I scanned everything. The next several years were not dramatic from the outside. I went to work. I packed lunches. I took Iris to dentist appointments. I sat through school concerts and clapped too loudly because no child of mine was going to scan an audience for missing faces and pretend not to care. Marisol became Auntie Mari without a ceremony. Daniel sent checks when he remembered, and birthday cards that made Iris shrug. My father's foundation grew bigger. So did the Gala. The Bellamy Promise Foundation expanded into youth leadership, maternal health initiatives, scholarship housing, and something called the Legacy Center, which was mostly a new building with a donor wall large enough to photograph. Graham became Chief Strategy Officer. My mother chaired the Hospitality Committee. Warren remained founder and board president, though everyone treated him like a benevolent king. Every so often, I received a message. Mara, your father would like to revisit those old documents. Mara, it would mean a lot if you stopped resisting family alignment. Mara, nobody is trying to take anything from you. I saved each one. Then, in March, 9 years after Iris was born, an email came from an address I did not recognize. Subject: Bellamy Promise Foundation Refinance Consent Package. I was at work, eating yogurt at my desk while reviewing a corrective action plan from a food bank. The subject line made my skin prickle before I opened it. The email was from a junior associate at a law firm copied to Warren Graham, a foundation CPA, someone from a bank, and an attorney named Dana Rusk. Dear Ms. Bellamy, attached, please find the meeting notice and signature packet for the upcoming Rhine Refinancing Approval Conference regarding foundation property and associated restricted assets. Your attendance is requested for final documentation. The meeting would be held April 3rd at 10 in the morning in the Bellamy Promise Foundation main conference room. Requested. Not invited. I opened the attachment. Most of the packet was marked draft. Some pages were locked. The signature pages were not. My name appeared on one line. Mara Bellamy, legacy member. I sat back in my chair. There it was, not hidden in my grandmother's folder, not buried in old minutes. In their own package. They needed something. But the email had come to me by accident, or at least too honestly. Within 20 minutes, Graham sent a second email, this one only to me. Mara, please ignore the prior wording. This is routine cleanup connected to Dad's capital plan. We need you there briefly. No need to overthink or bring your work brain into it. No need to bring your work brain into it. That was when I knew I would bring nothing else. I printed the first email. I printed the second. I requested certified copies of the Foundation's current filings. I ordered a copy of the original bylaws from the State Archive. I called Aunt Leona. She answered on the fourth ring. Aunt Lee, it's Mara. There was a pause, then her voice softened. Hello, sweetheart. We had not spoken much since Grandma Evelyn's funeral. She sent birthday cards to Iris with $20 bills inside. She never came to my father's house when I was there. She had perfected the art of caring from a distance. I need to ask you something about Grandma's foundation documents. Another pause. I wondered when you would. I closed my office door. What do you mean? Aunt Leona sighed. Your grandmother was careful. Careful about what? Your father. I did not speak, she said. I kept some copies. After Warren cleared the old archive room, I didn't like how much paper disappeared. Do you still have them? Yes. Would you be willing to bring them to the April 3rd meeting? Mara. In that one word, I heard years of fear, loyalty, habit, and fatigue. He used my labor as a board note, I said. Silence, then very quietly she said, I know. It would have been easier if she had sounded surprised. You knew? I saw the minutes later. I told myself it was Warren's wording, not yours. And that made it better? No, she said. I looked out my office window at the parking lot below. A woman in a red coat was trying to fold a stroller into her trunk while a toddler pulled at her sleeve. Aunt Leona said, I should have called you. Yes, no anger in my voice, just the word. She breathed in shakily. I'll bring the copies. That was the first person in my family who chose truth before the room forced them to. The second person I called was St. Agnes. It took forms, identification, and patience, but I requested portions of my hospital record. I did not need every medical detail. I needed the timeline, admission, fetal monitoring, staff notes, support person departure, delivery. When the records came, I sat in my car outside the post office and opened the envelope with my thumb. Family support person left room at approximately 19:21. There was Tessa's note, plain and clean, I cried then. Not loudly. Just one hand over my mouth, the paper trembling slightly in the other. For years, I had remembered the door closing. Now the record remembered with me. I found Tessa Lynn through the hospital's patient liaison office. I did not ask for her personal information. I left a message saying I was a former patient from October 17th, 9 years earlier, and I wanted to thank her. She called me 2 days later. Mara Bellamy, she said. Yes, this is Tessa Lynn. I remember you. My throat tightened. You do. Room 411, baby girl, Gala family. And it broke in the middle. I'm sorry, she said. That's how I filed it in my head. No, that's fair. We talked for 11 minutes. I thanked her. She asked about Iris. I told her Iris was 9 now, loved purple, hated peas, and had recently announced she might become either an architect or a person who trained dolphins. Tessa laughed. Good range. Then her voice changed. Are they still telling the story wrong? I closed my eyes. Yes. She did not ask me to explain why I had waited. She said, tell me what you need. The meeting notice said no children, of course. It did not say that directly. People like my father rarely say the direct thing when a polished version will do. It said seating would be limited to necessary parties. But April 3rd was a teacher workday. Marisol had a double shift at the surgical center. Iris's friend's mother canceled a planned play date at 7 that morning because her son woke up with a fever. I could have asked my mother to watch Iris. That would have been the old reflex. Instead, I packed snacks, headphones, a library book, and colored pencils into the purple backpack. Iris stood by the door wearing jeans, silver sneakers, and a sweatshirt with a moon on it. Is Grandpa Warren going to be weird? She asked. I paused with my keys in my hand. Probably. Do I have to hug him? No. Do I have to be polite? You have to be kind. Polite is optional when someone ignores your no. She thought about that. Can I bring the dolphin book? Yes. The foundation office was in a renovated bank building downtown. Marble floors, tall windows, brass railings preserved for character. My father loved telling people the building had history, by which he meant it photographed well. On the wall opposite the entrance was a large black and white portrait of Grandma Evelyn. Beneath it, engraved in stone, were the words, "Every child deserves someone who shows up." Iris read it out loud. Is that great-grandma Evelyn? Yes. Did she show up? I looked at the portrait. Grandma's eyes were crinkled at the corners, like she had just heard something funny and was deciding whether to correct it. She did. The receptionist knew my name but not my face. That happened often in my father's world. I was in the database, not the photographs, Mr. Bellamy is expecting you, she said. I'm sure he is. She glanced at Iris. My daughter will sit with me, I said. Oh, I think this is a closed. She will sit with me. Maybe it was my tone. Maybe it was the fact that I did not smile. The receptionist picked up the phone, murmured something, listened, then nodded us toward the elevator. The conference room was on the 3rd floor. I had been there once before when I was 22. for a scholarship luncheon after Grandma died. Back then, the room had dark carpet and framed watercolor prints. Now it was all pale marble, glass, and steel. The table was long enough to make ordinary conversation feel like testimony. White orchids sat in the center in low bowls. On one wall were framed photographs from past galas, including the one from the night Iris was born. I saw it immediately, my father at the podium, my mother in green beside him, Graham clapping blue lights, white flowers. Iris saw it too. "Mom," she whispered, "is that the night?" "Yes." She slipped one arm through the strap of her purple backpack and leaned closer to me. People were already seated. Graham stood near the screen, tapping at his phone. My mother sat 2 chairs from my father, wearing a cream jacket and pearls. Aunt Leona was near the far end, smaller than I remembered, with a brown leather tote on the floor beside her. Dana Rusk sat across from the bank representatives, silver hair cut at her chin, glasses low on her nose. 2 men in suits had folders embossed with the bank logo. The CPA had a laptop open. 3 donors sat together near the windows, including Martin Keene, whose name was on one of the scholarship wings. And then I saw Tessa. She was standing near the coffee service, speaking with a woman from the Maternal Health Advisory Committee. She wore a navy dress, not scrubs, and her hair was shorter, but I knew her posture before I knew her face, steady, present, watching the room without needing to own it. Our eyes met. She gave the smallest nod. My father came toward me with both arms open. "Mara," he said warmly, too warmly, "there she is." I did not step into the hug. I shifted slightly so his arms found air. His smile held, but the muscles around his eyes changed. "And Iris," he said, looking down. "My goodness, all grown." Iris said, "Hi." My mother rose. "Sweetheart, I didn't realize Iris was coming." "Neither did I until this morning." "Well," she looked at my father, "we can have someone find her a place outside." "No," I said. Graham came over. "This is a legal and financial meeting, Mara." "Then everyone should behave." Dana Rusk looked up from her folder. I saw the corner of her mouth move, not quite a smile. My father placed a hand lightly on the back of a chair near the head of the table. "Let's not start with friction. We're all family here." Iris whispered. "Are we?" I touched her shoulder. My father heard. His face tightened. "Why don't we sit?" he said. He had placed my chair along the side, not near the decision-makers. A courtesy seat, a daughter seat. There was a folder in front of it with my name on a printed label. Beside it lay the silver pen. The same one. Maybe it was not literally the same pen. Maybe he had several engraved silver pens for moments when he expected people to comply. But my body remembered it before my mind argued. I sat. Iris took the chair beside me and put her backpack between her feet. My father remained standing. "Before we begin," he said, "I want to thank everyone for making time. The Legacy Center refinance is an important step in ensuring the foundation's next 35 years. Graham clicked the remote. A slide appeared with a picture of smiling children in front of the proposed building. I looked at Dana. She was not looking at the slide. She was looking at the signature packet. My father continued, voice smooth. "We have a few housekeeping matters, including some old family documentation that should have been cleaned up years ago. Nothing dramatic." My mother smiled toward the donors, like the word dramatic had been placed carefully on a shelf. Iris opened her dolphin book, but did not read. Her fingers held the edges too tightly. Graham began walking through numbers, debt service, capital pledges, restricted asset bridge, naming opportunities. He used the phrase secured commitments twice. He used unified family consent once. Dana interrupted there. "Mr. Bellamy," she said. Graham stopped. He did not like being interrupted by women who were not impressed with him. "Yes. For clarity, when you say unified family consent, are you referring to board approval, donor pledge approval, or legacy member consent?" The room settled. My father stepped in. "All of it, Dana. The family is aligned." Dana made a note. "I'll need the record to be precise." "Of course." She turned a page. "My office has board resolutions. We have pledge summaries. We do not yet have all required legacy consents." My father chuckled softly. "That's why Mara is here." Every face turned toward me. I did not speak. My father sat at the head of the table and folded his hands. "Mara has always been careful with paperwork," he said. "Sometimes excessively careful. But I'm confident we can resolve this today." My mother leaned toward me. "It really is simple, sweetheart. That word, sweetheart, had done so much work in my life. It had been used to soften commands, excuse absence, close conversations, and remind me that objecting would make me difficult. I opened the folder in front of me. The signature page was on top. Consent and ratification of legacy member. There were other documents behind it, including a statement that prior governance questions had been resolved to the satisfaction of all parties. I read that twice. Resolved. My father watched me the way he used to watch donors read pledge cards. Graham tapped his pen. We're on a schedule. I'm reading. You had the packet in advance. I had a draft. He looked toward the bankers as if apologizing for a child. Mara works in compliance. She gets very attached to process. Dana said, process is why lenders sleep at night. One of the bank representatives coughed into his hand. My father's smile thinned. Iris leaned closer to me and whispered, I like her. I kept my eyes on the page. My father pushed the silver pen forward with 2 fingers. It rolled halfway between us. Mara, he said, let's not perform. I looked up. There it was. The room he controlled, the people he wanted to impress. The pen. My mother's anxious smile, Graham's impatience. My daughter's purple backpack touching my ankle. 9 years folded into one clean line. Perform? I asked. He lowered his voice, but not enough. Smile, don't embarrass me again. No one moved. Then Iris very softly said, again my father glanced at her, adult conversation, Iris. I felt her flinch without seeing it. That was when something in me became very still. Warren, my mother murmured. He ignored her. Mara knows what I mean. We have all been patient with her sensitivities around the night Iris was born. Tessa's head turned from the coffee service. Aunt Leona looked down at her hands. Dana stopped writing. My father mistook the silence for permission. I won't pretend it was not a difficult period, he said. For all of us. Mara was overwhelmed, understandably. There were questions about judgment, capacity, whether she should be involved in foundation matters at all. We handled it privately because we are family. The donors shifted. I could feel Iris staring at me. I did not look at her because I needed her to see me steady. Graham added, nobody is blaming you, Mara. But you can't hold the foundation hostage because of old feelings. Old feelings. I thought of oxygen against my face, Tessa's blue sneakers, my mother's green dress disappearing through the door, a text that said, how are things? My mother leaned toward me. Her voice was nearly kind. Please don't make this harder. There it was. Her almost moment 9 years too late. Her eyes were wet again. For 1 second, I saw the woman who could have stayed. Then she chose the same side she had always chosen. I looked at her and understood that waiting for her had been another way of leaving myself in that room. My father picked up the pen and held it out. Mara, sign the consent. Before I decide anything, I said, I have a question. Graham sighed. Dana leaned back slightly. My father nodded once. Magnanimous. Fine. You said there were questions about my capacity after Iris was born. Yes. And you said those questions were handled privately. That's right. Are you referring to the board minutes from December 2nd, 9 years ago? My father's fingers tightened around the pen. Graham stopped tapping. My mother blinked. Iris looked from me to my father. Dana turned 1 page in her folder. My father said, I don't have every date memorized. I do. Aunt Leona closed her eyes. I reached into my bag and took out a slim folder. Not Grandma Evelyn's blue one. I would never bring the original into that room. This one was gray, plain and organized with tabs. My father gave a small laugh. Of course you brought a dossier. No, I said. Copies. That was the first time his expression slipped. I removed the first page and set it on the table. These are the minutes where the board discussed my documented instability surrounding childbirth. The CPA leaned forward. One of the donors frowned. My father's voice hardened. That was internal language taken out of context. What was the context? Mara, my mother whispered. I kept my eyes on my father. He sat back. You had a traumatic delivery. No one disputes that. You were not in a position to make decisions. At what time was I not in a position to make decisions? This is absurd. You said it was documented. I'm asking what time. Graham said. You're derailing the meeting. Dana spoke before I could. Mr. Bellamy, the question may be relevant if prior consent or resignation is being relied upon. My father looked annoyed, not worried yet. No one is relying on anything improper. Then answer, I said. His eyes flicked to the donors. He made his voice patient. Mara signed documents after the hospital incident, indicating she did not wish to participate in foundation governance. We proceeded accordingly. No, I said. The word was quiet, but it landed. My father stared at me. I asked, "What date are you saying I signed?" He looked at Graham. Graham looked at the CPA. The CPA looked at his laptop as if a safe answer might appear there. My father said, "It was around the birth." Around is not a date. His jaw tightened. October 17th. My daughter stopped breathing for a second. I heard it. I turned slightly toward her. "You're okay." She nodded, but her eyes were wide. I faced my father again, October 17th, the night Iris was born. "Yes," he said, or immediately after. The point is, I placed the second document on the table. "This is the transfer packet Mom mailed me 3 months later with sticky tabs. It is unsigned." My mother's face went pale. I placed another page beside it. "This is the envelope it came in. Postmarked January 23rd. Dana stood and came closer. My father said, "That proves nothing except your refusal to cooperate." "Maybe," I said. "But it does prove I did not sign that packet on October 17th. Graham leaned forward. "There were other documents. Show them." He opened his mouth, then closed it. I looked at Dana. "Has anyone provided your office with a signed resignation or relinquishment from me?" Dana looked down at her file. "No," my father said, "because this meeting is to resolve the missing formality." Dana's voice remained even. "That is not how it was represented to my office." Silence again. I heard the air system click on. My father's hand moved toward his water glass, then away. I placed the hospital timeline on the table. "This is from St. Agnes. I was admitted at 5:28. Fetal monitoring concerns began at 7:06. Family support person left the room at approximately 7:21. Iris was born at 8:46. I did not look at Tessa yet. My father looked at the page like it had insulted him. "That is private medical information," he said. "It is mine. Mara, don't do this." I almost smiled, not because anything was funny, because he had finally stopped saying sign. Dana picked up the hospital timeline with my permission and scanned it. I said, "You told the board I was unstable after you left me in active labor to attend your gala." My mother made a sound. "Mara," I looked at her. "Did he leave?" Her mouth trembled. For 9 years, some small foolish part of me had wanted that answer. Not an apology, not a hug, just one clean word. My mother looked at Warren, then at Graham, then at Iris, then down at the table. "Celeste," Dana said gently, "the question has been asked in a room where the timeline is already on the table." My mother whispered, "Yes." My father turned on her. "For God's sake." She flinched. The old me would have felt sorry for her first. The old me would have tried to make that flinch cost her less. I did not. Tessa stepped away from the coffee service. "Miss Bellamy," Dana asked, looking at me. "Is this the nurse you referenced in your letter to my office?" My father's head snapped toward me. I said, "Yes." Tessa came to the table. "I'm Tessa Lynn. I was Mara's labor and delivery nurse that night." Graham muttered, "This is ridiculous." Tessa looked at him once. He stopped. She said, "Mara was frightened. She was in pain. She was having a complicated labor. She was not unstable in the way that word is being used here. She asked her father not to leave. He left. I charted the support change because that is what happened." My father's face had gone red in uneven patches. "You have no right to discuss family matters," he said. Tessa did not blink. "I am discussing patient care with the patient's permission." Martin Keene, the donor near the window, closed his folder. It was a small sound. My father heard it. That was when his voice changed. It became softer, more dangerous. "This is exactly the kind of emotional ambush I was trying to prevent," he said. "Mara has always had trouble separating personal grievances from responsibility. Mother knew that." Aunt Leona lifted her head. "No, Warren," she said. Everyone turned. My aunt reached into her brown leather tote and removed a folder, not blue like mine, manila, old, with Evelyn's handwriting across the tab. "Legacy member provisions." My father stared at it. "Leona," he said. She looked smaller than him and older than him and tired all the way through. But her hand was steady when she placed the folder on the table. "Mother knew you," she said. The room went so quiet I could hear Iris's backpack zipper clicking against the chair leg. Aunt Leona opened the folder. These are copies of the original board minutes from the meeting where the legacy membership class was created, she said. Evelyn wanted certain family members, including Mara when she reached age 25, to have consent rights over major transactions involving restricted assets. My father stood. This is not necessary. Dana looked at him. Please sit down. He did not. For the first time in my life, my father was in a room where his standing did not make him taller. Dana took the copies from Aunt Leona and compared them with the documents in her own binder. Then she read aloud, not loudly, not dramatically, just clearly. Section 6.4. Consent of legacy voting member required for any pledge, refinance, encumbrance, transfer, or restructuring involving foundation real property or restricted charitable assets above the threshold established by the board and legacy membership. She looked at me, then at my father. Without Ms. Bellamy's voluntary written consent, this action cannot proceed. There it was. Not revenge, not a speech, a sentence in a document my grandmother had written because she knew charm could become a weapon when nobody checked the locks. My father's hand went to the table. The silver pen rolled from beside the folder, hit the edge of his water glass, and dropped to the marble floor. The sound was tiny. Everyone heard it. Iris leaned toward me and whispered, "Is he in trouble?" My father closed his eyes for half a second. Graham said too quickly, "Okay, so she signs now and we move on." Dana turned to him. "No." He blinked. "Excuse me. Consent obtained under misrepresentation or pressure would create additional problems." My father sat down slowly. I put one final page on the table. "This is the statement in today's packet saying all prior governance questions have been resolved to the satisfaction of all parties. I will not sign that." My father's voice dropped. "Mara, honey." I had not heard honey from him since I was small enough to sit on his shoulders. "Don't," I said. He spread his hands, the public gesture of a reasonable man. "Let's talk privately." Clearly, this has become more emotional than anyone intended. I looked around the room, at the donors who had come expecting a clean transaction, at Graham, whose face had lost its easy contempt, at my mother, crying silently now, though I could not tell for whom, at Aunt Leona, staring at Grandma Evelyn's folder like she was apologizing to it, at Tessa, steady as ever, at Iris holding her purple backpack straps with both hands. "No," I said. "You chose the room." My father swallowed. Dana returned to her seat. "For the record, my recommendation is that this meeting be suspended pending independent governance review, corrected minutes, and confirmation of membership status." One of the bank representatives nodded. "The bank will pause review until counsel advises." Graham's head turned sharply. "Pause for how long?" The banker closed his folder. "Until the documentation is reliable." Reliable. That word did what shouting could not have done. Martin Keynes stood and buttoned his jacket. "Warren, I think we need to revisit our pledge schedule." My father rose halfway. "Martin, this is a family misunderstanding." Martin looked at the hospital timeline still lying on the table, then at the Gala photograph on the wall. "It seems to be more than that." He left without raising his voice. The other donors followed slowly, one by one, gathering folders and avoiding my father's eyes. Not because they were noble. Donors are not saints just because they become uncomfortable. But public generosity depends on private confidence, and my father had made his own story look unsafe to stand near. Graham turned on Dana. "You should have caught this earlier." Dana closed her binder. I asked for the missing consent 3 times. The CPA cleared his throat. "Graham," the donor materials said approvals were secured. Graham's face changed. My father looked at him. For once, the favorite son did not have a clean place to hide. My mother reached across the table toward me. "Mara, please," she said. "You've made your point." I looked at her hand. I remembered the hospital. Her fingers in mine, the way they slipped away. "I wasn't making a point," I said. "I was correcting a record." She began crying harder. "We were trying to protect you." "No," I said. "You were protecting him." My father stood fully then. His chair scraped against the floor. "You have no idea what you're doing," he said. I placed the cap back on my pen. Mine was black plastic from a state office supply closet. It had no engraving and worked perfectly. "I know exactly what I'm not doing." His eyes narrowed. "And what is that?" "I'm not signing a false statement. I'm not ratifying minutes that call me unstable." I'm not consenting to a refinance until independent counsel reviews the foundation records. And I'm not discussing any of it privately. The room held still. He stared at me like I had spoken a language he had refused to learn. Then he tried the last door. "Mara," he said softly. "We're family." I felt Iris move closer. I looked at my father. I thought about the night he left. The pen. The flowers my mother brought from centerpieces. The board minutes. The years I had spent saving proof because nobody in my own family could be trusted to remember me accurately. "You said you couldn't trust me with anything important," I said. "So don't ask me to save it." He looked at the paper, then at me, and finally understood. Iris and I left before anyone could turn the meeting into another performance. In the elevator, she held my hand. She did not say anything until the doors closed. Then she asked, "Were you scared?" "Yes." "You didn't look scared." "I practiced." She nodded like that made sense. When we reached the lobby, we passed Grandma Evelyn's portrait again. Iris stopped and looked up at it. "Me too," she asked. In her way, Iris adjusted the straps of her purple backpack. "I like her." "Me too." Outside, the air smelled like rain on hot pavement. My hands started shaking only after we got to the car. I sat in the driver's seat and gripped the wheel until my knuckles went white. Iris waited, then took a granola bar from her backpack and placed it in my lap. "Auntie Mari says food first," she said. That broke me a little. I cried there in the parking garage, not the way I had cried after the hospital, when crying felt like falling through an empty floor. This was different, tired, relieved. Embarrassed because my daughter was watching, but not ashamed. Iris unwrapped her own granola bar and looked out the windshield. "Grandpa Warren is not very good at sorry," she said. "No," I said. "He isn't." My phone started buzzing before I left the garage. Graham, my mother, my father, Graham again, then a text from my father. "You need to come back upstairs before this gets out of hand." I looked at it for a long moment. Then I turned the phone face down and drove to Marisol's. She opened the door in scrub pants and a sweatshirt, took one look at me, and stepped aside. "Shoes off," she said. "Soups." Iris put her purple backpack by the kitchen door like she had done 100 times before. Marisol had already set an extra bowl out for her. No one asked me to explain before feeding me. That evening, after Iris fell asleep on Marisol's couch with the dolphin book open on her chest, I checked my phone. There were 14 missed calls. My mother had left one voicemail. Her voice was small. "Mara, sweetheart, your father is devastated. I know today was hard, but you have to understand, he has given his life to that foundation. Please don't let one painful memory destroy everything Evelyn built." One painful memory. I saved the voicemail, not because I needed proof anymore, because sometimes saving the last version of a lie helps you stop negotiating with it. Dana Rusk emailed the next morning. Her message was short and professional. The refinance was suspended. The bank required governance review. The foundation board would need to correct or explain discrepancies in prior minutes. Any future consent request to me would need to come through independent counsel, with no family intermediaries. I read it twice, then forwarded it to a separate email folder. At work, Nadine stopped by my desk and said, "You look like you either slept terribly or won a fight you didn't want." "Both." She nodded and placed a grant file on my desk. "Then start with coffee." That was the thing about ordinary life. It kept going, and that helped. The consequences did not come as one grand collapse. They came as delays, questions, and people stepping back from rooms where they used to lean in. The bank paused the refinance indefinitely. The Maternal Health Advisory Committee requested clarification about Warren's use of hospital-related language in board documents. Martin Keene's office sent a formal notice that his pledge schedule would be reviewed after the governance audit. 2 board members resigned within a month, both citing family governance concerns in letters so carefully phrased they might as well have been written with tweezers. Graham's title did not change right away, but his voice did. I heard that from Aunt Leona, who called me once after the audit began. "He's angry," she said. "I'm sure. He says you humiliated him." "No," I said. "He repeated false information in a room with counsel." Aunt Leona was quiet. Then she said, "Your grandmother would be proud of you." I did not answer right away. Part of me wanted that sentence badly. Part of me did not want any more family approval. even the kind that came from the dead through someone else's guilt. Finally, I said, she would have wanted someone to stop him sooner. Aunt Leona took that in. Yes, she said, she would have. My mother sent letters for a while, actual paper letters, because she believed handwriting made pressure look tender. The first one said she loved me. The second said Warren's health was suffering. The third included a photo of him standing alone in the foundation atrium, looking older than I remembered. On the back she wrote, he misses his girls. I did not show Iris. I responded once by email because Dana had advised keeping everything written. Mom, for the foreseeable future, communication should remain in writing. Iris will not be used to repair adult relationships. I am willing to review corrected foundation records through counsel. I am not willing to discuss the hospital, the meeting, or my signature privately. Mara, she replied 20 minutes later. That sounds so cold. I did not answer. Cold was the name my family gave to warmth they could not control. That is one of the few things I will say plainly, because I spent too many years letting them rename me. Warren lasted 6 weeks before asking for a private meeting. He did not call me himself. Dana forwarded the request from his attorney, Mr. Bellamy wishes to discuss a path toward family healing and foundation continuity. I wrote back, I am available to discuss foundation governance through counsel. I am not available for family healing discussions with Mr. Bellamy. 2 hours later, my father texted from his personal phone. After everything I've done for you, this is beneath you. I typed 3 different responses. Then I deleted them all. The next day, I blocked his number. That felt less dramatic than people imagine. The sky did not split open. My phone simply became quieter. The audit took months. I did not follow every detail because I did not need to. For once, other people were being paid to read the documents. Corrected minutes were eventually drafted. The sentence about my documented instability was removed and replaced with language posts, stating that no signed relinquishment had been found and that prior assumptions regarding my participation were unsupported. It was not an apology. It was not tenderness. It was a record finally refusing to carry a lie. I signed one document after that, not the refinance consent. I signed an acknowledgement that the corrected minutes accurately reflected that I had not relinquished my legacy membership rights. My signature was small and neat, no silver pen. I used the black plastic one from my kitchen drawer while Iris did homework beside me. What is that? She asked. A correction, for Grandpa Warren, for me. She nodded and went back to long division, which she considered a personal attack from the school system. The foundation eventually scaled down the Legacy Center plan. The giant donor wall disappeared from the renderings. Graham took what was described publicly as a strategic leave. My father remained on the board for a while, but not as president. That detail reached me through the local business journal, not through family. There was a photograph with the article. Warren standing beside an interim board chair, smiling like a man swallowing broken glass. I felt less than I expected. Not nothing. There was a sadness in me, but it was not soft enough to become forgiveness. It was more like finding an old bruise and realizing it no longer hurt when pressed. The last time I saw my father in person was outside a courthouse annex, of all places, after a governance mediation I attended with counsel. He waited near the stone steps in a dark overcoat, thinner than before, his hair more silver at the temples. Mara, he said. I stopped because running would have made him too important. He looked past me, maybe hoping Iris was there. She was not. I made mistakes, he said. I waited. He seemed uncomfortable with the silence. That night was difficult. The gala, the pressure, your condition. I was trying to hold everything together. There it was again. A room where he was the burdened hero and I was the unfortunate weather. You left, I said. He looked away. I came back. No, I said. You came back after the story was useful. His mouth tightened. You think very harshly of me. I think accurately. A car passed on the street behind him. He looked older in daylight, away from marble and microphones. Are you really going to keep my granddaughter from me? I adjusted my bag on my shoulder. I'm going to keep my daughter from rooms where love is used as a leash. He flinched as if I had raised my voice. I had not. Mara, he said, and for a second he sounded almost tired enough to be honest. What do you want from me? I thought about it. For years, I would have had a list. Admit you left. Admit mom followed. Admit I was not unstable. Admit you tried to get me to sign something while I was in labor. Admit grandma did not build that foundation so you could use it as a throne. Admit you chose applause over me. But standing there, I realized I did not want to pull truth out of him one tooth at a time. Nothing, I said. He looked confused. That was the freedom. Not that he understood, that I no longer needed him to. I walked to my car. He did not follow. That weekend, Iris and I went to Marisol's for dinner. It was raining, and the porch light outside her townhouse glowed warm against the wet steps. Iris's purple backpack sat by the door, stuffed for a sleepover, pajamas, toothbrush, dolphin book still somehow not outgrown, a new sketch pad, because she had decided architects probably made more sense than dolphin training in Virginia. Marisol stirred rice on the stove and pointed a wooden spoon at me. You're too skinny again. I'm the same size. You're emotionally skinny. Iris laughed so hard she dropped her pencil. We ate at Marisol's kitchen table with mismatched plates and too many napkins because Marisol believed children were basically soup hazards. No one asked us to pose. No one corrected my face. No one used the word legacy tea. After dinner, Iris brought me a drawing. It was a building with big windows, a yellow porch light, and a sign over the door that said "Show Up House." In the corner, she had drawn 3 stick figures. Me, her, and Marisol. Beside us was a small woman with gray hair and wings. Is that Grandma Evelyn? I asked. Iris shrugged. Maybe, or a building inspector angel. Marisol looked over my shoulder, very strict angel. I taped the drawing to our refrigerator when we got home. The blue folder is still in my closet, in a fireproof box now. Not because I expect another battle. Because some things deserve to be kept safely after they have done their work. The silver pen stayed on the marble floor. At least that is how I remember it. Maybe someone picked it up. Maybe it was placed back in Warren's drawer, waiting for another signature, another performance, another person too tired to read. But in my mind, it remains where it fell, small and useless, under a table full of people who had finally stopped listening to him. As for Iris, she does not ask about Grandpa Warren much. When she does, I answer simply. I do not give her every detail. A child does not need to carry the full weight of a story to be protected by its truth. She knows I was alone when she was born. She knows a nurse helped me. She knows Auntie Mari fixed the porch light. She knows some adults say family when they mean obedience. And she knows she never has to hug someone just because they are related. That is enough for now. I used to think closure would arrive as a conversation. I thought someone would sit across from me, cry honestly, say the words in the right order, and return the years my family had taken by lying about them. A closure for me came in smaller pieces, a corrected record, a blocked number, a child eating soup in a safe kitchen, a purple backpack by a door that opened without fear. That's my story, a silver pen, 721 on a hospital chart, and a purple backpack waiting under a porch light. If someone in your life only values you when you are useful, take this as your sign, read before you agree. Keep the proof, and stop handing your piece to people who only show up when they need your signature. If this story found you at the right time, tell me where you're listening from, and stay with By Then I Knew for the next one.